Hey guys and girls, Board now back with Rachel McDonald, and on this video we will be talking about the second episode of the first season of the new Chucky TV show. The episode is called Give Me Something to Eat, so quite an enticing title. And spoilers just to warn you if you haven't seen the episode. And I guess the big sort of thing in this episode is that it builds to Jake finally getting to a point by the end of the episode where he feels, screw it. I think I'm convinced now Lexi is a total bitch, and she does deserve to be killed by Chucky. So in a way, I think the arc of the episode is Jake sort of descending to the dark side a little bit, and Chucky finally convincing him that, as Chucky keeps saying throughout the episode, there's just some people who deserve to die. So it's set on Halloween or around Halloween, and there's a big Halloween party in town. There's quite a nice touch, actually. The very opening scene is Charles Lee Ray as a kid in the 60s. So we get him celebrating Halloween back then. And this is obviously something they're going to do a little bit, is dove into his past as Charles Lee Ray, which of course, apart from the obvious stuff, him being a killer and stuff, they never really did in the film. So I guess that's something that makes sense and they would do in a TV show. But yeah, so much of this episode is like the build up to this party and just certain tensions and really Chucky's, I guess, tactics in trying to convince Jake to kill Lexi, to get him to this place where, yeah, screw it, this girl has to go, sort of thing. And at one point he like kills off the maid and tries to claim it's not really him. He's doing that whole thing, but it's all part of like the manipulation and stuff like that. Also partly because the maid sort of pisses him off a little bit because she actually likes
she cleans him.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. But that's the episode pretty much in a nutshell. Now, we weren't too high on the first episode, so I'm going to ask the question, Rachel, what did you think of this one?
So I do think this one was an improvement over the last one. I found myself a bit more engaged with this one. I thought that we at least started to see some light layers, not anything too deep, but we did get to see some light layers to some of the characters. I like this twin Devon Sawyer better than the other one. So in the last episode, the bad dad died, but we still have Devon Sawyer because identical twins, sure.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, because I saw his name on the cast. I thought, I thought he died, but okay.
So his family has obviously taken Jake in, and there's some tension between Jake and his cousin. But we do get to see a little bit of layers to his cousin. Like we find out that his dad was like possibly an athlete or something, and he's got like a lot of pressure on him to live up to that. So we see like a little bit of those layers. We even see a tiny little bit of layering to what's her name, Lexi, to Lexi's character, because we see that like her parents, her sister is like some sort of like child genius, and then her parents are like, oh, your sister has more talent than you have ever had in your whole life. And you see that Lexi's like a little bit upset with that. And I felt a little bit sorry for her. That was gone by the end of the episode, which we'll talk about why.
Yeah.
But I did find this one a little bit more engaging. A Halloween episode is always good. I like anything set around Halloween. The kill with the maid was a bit weird, but it did have a shot that I really liked. So basically Chucky kills her by pushing her into an open dishwasher which has knives pointing up, because who loads their dishwasher like that, but whatever. And so she falls forward onto the knives, and then you see a shot from the side and you see Chucky reflected in one of the knives while her body is hanging there. And I thought that was kind of a very effective shot. But I have to say Chucky's kind of relationship with Jake is getting a little creepy, and very much reminded me of, did you ever read Goosebumps as a kid?
No.
Okay, so the Goosebumps series had this kind of like mini series in between in it called Night of a Living Dummy, where these girls would bring home this dummy called Slappy, and Slappy was like alive. He was like a Chucky doll, and he would come to life and he would start to engage in like having almost an abusive relationship with these girls. So he would like smack them around and like hit them and like demean them and yell at them. And this was in a kid's book, mind you. Like this is the kind of stuff I was reading when I was 9. But this relationship reminded me of that, because we see Chucky start to manipulate Jake. We see him we hear him hit him. At one point, he hits him hard enough that he actually ends up with like a black eye, and everyone thinks that it's makeup, but it's actually like Chucky smacking him around. And I have to say, it does feel a little uncomfortable given Jake's sexuality, almost like he's kind of playing into like being an abusive partner. And at one point in time, he brings up Seed of Chucky, which I was like, oh, no one needs to be reminded of that film. At one point, Chucky
is when he says about he had like
he has a queer kid as well, a gender fluid kid. And I was like, okay, we don't need to talk about Seed of Chucky and how problematic that was. Like, I know that this is obviously set in the Chucky universe, so everything in all the previous films is canon, but I'm like, no. Seed of Chucky, we can leave back in the early 2000s. We don't need to bring that up. So I did find that kind of interesting. I did like that this movie is kind of mirroring the first movie a little bit, with like they're starting to suspect Jake for the murders. Like the cops are like, you know, after the maid dies, they're like, this is the second suspicious death that's kind of happened around this kid. And obviously that kind of mirrors Andy in the first movie. They were thinking that it was Andy because, you know, no one's going to suspect a doll, because no rational adult is going to suspect a doll. And so I did kind of like, and I kind of think that's how they'll maybe
think of that. That's true.
they'll work Andy into the film, into the series like that. Like he'll come in to give Jake advice and be like, well, I was where you were. I had this psycho doll as well. So overall, I think it was a little bit better than the first one. I still wouldn't say it was fantastic, but it's at least giving me hope that maybe it's building to something a bit better. What about you? How did you feel about it?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I think it's a move in the right direction, and still unconvinced by the teen characters, and I think that the standard of acting's pretty bad. So I'm just a bit worried that if we continue with this sort of mix of like their drama and then the stuff with Chucky, then maybe it might still drag it down for me. Because I do think Lexi is very one note, and I think you make a good point about her. Then they do try to show her as a bit more sympathetic in this, but I don't know, that in itself may be a problem. It might just be better if they just went full blown villain. And I think some of her complaints in this, I guess they're just playing up like the shallow, bitchy sort of girl, but they're a little bit weird. I mean, I think she's, in a way, she just seems to be making a little bit too much of the whole doll thing. And obviously we talked last week that whole scene, the talent show scene, was like really weird. It doesn't make a lot of sense when you look at it, but again, I think she is a bit of a problem. She's not like the best villain in the world, and now if they're trying to make her more sympathetic, it's sort of very hard to do. It's very hard to make her sympathetic, I think, anyway. I think I quite like the sort of slow burning like relationship with Jake and the other kid. That's okay. I mean, I don't think it's amazing. Again, I'm not maybe sold on the actors, particularly Jake. I mean, I think the other actor's pretty good, and I mean, this week I was a bit more sold on Jake. I wasn't as sort of bored by him. I think
he seems to be settling in a little bit better.
I think this week the episode was a bit better just because they toned down some of the melodrama, so it wasn't so in your face. But I think that's an okay slow burn relationship that they've got going there. Because one thing we didn't talk about actually with last week's is a couple of things. They obviously play up the true crime modern aspect, because this young guy, I think Devon, his name is,
Devon,
sort of has this thing with he actually has his own podcast, which is a modern comment, because obviously nowadays it's so easy for even someone that age to have their own podcast. So that's the thing that's going on in the background, where he's quite a hit with like this true crime podcast. Also, last week, I think something that didn't work as well is I think they were really hitting you over the head with the social media stuff. I don't think that's as bad in this episode. It wasn't so in your face, but that's something which put me off a bit last week. It's an improvement. It still has that feel of this is kind of a typical network show, which just happens to have Chucky in it. So it's still got a long way to go to like totally win me over, but it's sort of heading in the right direction. So as long as they keep this up, then hopefully it'll build to the show that we're looking for. And we're obviously, I think, looking forward to having more of the movie characters, because that's obviously when things could really get like interesting and spicy. One thing I liked actually about the dishwasher scene is, and they do sort of pick you up on that, because the cop who's investigating, he actually mentions the apparently, and I'm assuming this could be a real thing, but apparently that's why they do it, because it apparently makes them cleaner, or it cleans them far. He mentions that at some
point. You're right, he does, but it just seems ridiculous to me.
Well, he makes the Saki reminds like, well, it doesn't really work basically, but that's a bit convenient that Lexi happens to be dating, you know, the son of like his uncle who he's now moved in with. And some of the drama with like Jake and him, I didn't like. It was a bit one note and a bit sort of pointless, and like they were just looking for things, because in a way it didn't really feel that there was that much of a reason for him to resent Jake. It just felt like they were just forcing it a little bit. So stuff like that. I mean, again, it's similar to the first episode, where a lot of the highlights is the Chucky stuff. And I think the teen stuff and the drama is a little bit better this episode.
Of where it could go. Like I said, there are some very effective framing shots. There's some shots that I really liked where they framed Chucky and they were framing the action. I think, the Chucky scenes are always good value, but there is kind of there's a bizarreness to this TV show. Like some of the scenes are just weird, and there's just no other way to describe them other than they're just weird. Like there was this scene where Lexi and the boyfriend are like doing some stuff, and she keeps going on about like, you're not doing anything, and I think she's supposed to be referring to like he's not doing anything while they're trying to have sex, and it's like it just comes across as like really weird. Like he's all like, oh, did you feel that? And that's right, because Chucky's under the bed trying to like stab them through the bed, and he's all like, did you feel that? And she's like, what? You didn't do anything. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. Like first of all, these kids look way too young to be having any kind of like hanky-panky, and secondly, it just, I don't know, maybe it was just the actors or the scene didn't feel genuine, but like that felt really weird. I did find some of the scenes sorry, you go.
I mean, I guess you could just put it down to kids nowadays, things moving faster. I mean, I don't know if they're actually, because that's the impression I got, then they were actually building to maybe having sex. Because if they were just like snogging and what have you, then that's all fine, because they are at least teens. But I think the way it's playing out, it does give you the impression that they might be leading up to sex, which is they're a little, because in a way Lexi's almost suggesting then she is experienced in that sense, and it was weird.
And they don't quite seem to know what to do with her character either. Like I said, like they give her like a little bit of sympathy, but then they dial it all the way back when we see that she dresses as Jake's dad being electrocuted for Halloween. Like what the, I know teenagers can be sociopaths, but this is like beyond that. This is like, dude, why would you do that? That's so traumatizing. It just seems so horrible that she would do something like that.
I mean, on the one hand, I sort of appreciate it as a reveal because obviously they have been building
Yes,
up to this
that's
stuff,
true.
and there's this whole thing about what she's gonna
What's your
dress at,
costume?
and it's a
Yeah.
bit weird because she's just in a coat, isn't she? When she's on
Yeah,
the
like
set
where's she
with
hiding it?
juniors, but that's obviously so as a reveal, it kind of works, but it's maybe is a bit at odds with her being portrayed as a bit more sympathetic, and obviously
Yeah,
she's reenacting the scene, and again, like you do. I think because it's a Chucky show, it maybe just assists in this pulpy sort of universe where you maybe
fair
just have
enough.
to accept it's not. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think scenes like this, it's a little bit weird because everyone's cheering at the party, and again, you just sort of think, well, I I know they can be cruel and little shit sometimes, but when his dad has like tragically died this way, would they really be laughing at it? I mean,
exactly.
if
And with
anything,
him
it
right
would make
there.
them turn on her sort.
Yeah.
So.
And it's like you said, they don't seem to be really committing with Lexi. It's like either make her a full villain or make her an actual character, but they seem to be wanting to do both. And it's like, well, she's either a really
Yeah,
horrible person or it feels like they don't quite have a grasp on her character yet. And I can't tell whether or not they're going to kill her because they just keep going back and forth with her character a bit. I mean, we're only 2 episodes in, and I'm already so confused as to where they're going with her character.
stay alive at least for a couple more episodes because if she's
Yeah,
at this point the main villain, then I suppose for a while they've maybe got to keep her alive. Like, I think if they did it in the next episode, it would feel a bit rushed maybe, and they wouldn't get as much out of it. But we'll see. Yeah, I'm not sure I can see her being around that long, but I think we're still talking like 2, maybe 3 episodes because
yeah,
I guess they're really going to play with that. But yeah, the stuff on the bed, I think that's another example where it's not quite bringing the two sides of the show together, like the Chucky side and obviously the teen stuff, because that was just like really random and silly, and it's just
yeah,
him like just played as like a sketch sort of like gag sort of thing with them like
yeah.
coming up at the right moments so that he didn't stab
He
them.
didn't
And
stab them. Yeah,
I
it was
think that's an
weird.
example where they're not bringing the two sides together. With him going trick or treating, I like that. I enjoyed him playing video games with the kids.
Yeah, yeah, that was kind of a fun
That
scene,
was
wasn't
funny.
it?
So I think,
So that scene where he goes to the house in the Hello Kitty mask and he's like talking to that woman, that was kind of a fun but also weird scene. Again, like this woman's not questioning why some tiny little like 3-year-old is able to carry on like a normal conversation with her, and then he gives her the apple with
well,
the
yeah,
razor in it, and it's kind of just a weird scene, but it's also fun because again, it's Chucky, so it's fun. But I
yeah,
found that scene a little weird as well. Again, it just feels like it's
that's
almost like
true. I didn't think of that, but
it's just a bit odd. It almost feels like you said, like they're trying to mash like a generic teen drama with a Chucky horror film, and they haven't quite figured out how to smooth the two of them together. So we're getting this kind of up and down consistency where it's kind of like it gets boring, but it gets interesting, but it gets a bit boring again, and it's like
yeah.
do you know how many episodes they're doing? How long this is going to
Well,
go?
well, in this season there's 10.
Okay, all
I'm
right.
assuming there's potential for more seasons if it does well, and but I guess yeah, we're not quite sure how it's going to go at this point. We're obviously assuming that at least for this season, then Jake's going to be around, then because him and Chucky seem to be like the main characters, but
Yeah.
they're obviously going to introduce these other characters from the film. Yeah, I think I agree with you. Then it is a bit of a weird sort of mashup at the moment, and that they're not quite making it work. Yeah, I'm still waiting for the point where there will be obviously spoilers and stuff, because at the moment I think they are, if you are a casual viewer, they are sort of making it work for you as a standalone. Because
Yeah.
I think one thing probably I would say is frustrating me is in some ways I just want them to just run with the Chucky stuff and do
Yeah.
that, and then get to the other characters as well.
Yeah.
I enjoy those characters, but that's as someone who's seen the movies and invested.
Yeah.
Again, I sort of wonder if they're doing it like this, because in a way they're sort of treating it like it's they're doing it in the same way as they did it in the first film, sort of thing. And I was talking to people online about this week, and they sort of defended it and said, well, if you look at it, it sort of is the way they've done it all the way through the films and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, because even in the later films, it was like Chucky like causing chaos with the adults and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I get that. It's just even in that first film, it was still different because they treated it as a horror movie, and it didn't feel like a teen drama. And obviously Andy was just a good character, and his mother was a good character, and you know that's what it comes down to.
Then the pilot maybe gives us some hope that it will continue to improve. Like if we'd watched this one and it had been on the same level as the pilot, then it would have been like, well, you know, we're getting the same thing. But the fact that this one was a little bit more engaging, a little bit more entertaining, they're maybe starting to smooth out the characters a bit. I agree that the acting is not fantastic, but we are talking about young actors, so maybe they just need to settle into the roles a little bit more. Maybe they don't have that much experience. I think they do need to figure out what they want to do with characterization. They don't seem to have a great handle on that. But some of the scenes were effective. Some of the shots were effective. Chucky is fun. The relationship between him and Jake has the potential to be interesting, especially if he does start to sway Jake kind of like, you know, down the dark side. What I would like to know, though, is they haven't really made it clear what Chucky's motivations are here. Like, does he want to take Jake as a host? Does he just want to keep wreaking havoc? Like, you know, in the first movie, it was all about he was going to transfer himself to Andy, so we knew what the end goal was. And I know that Chucky has become, like with all the sequels and stuff, it's become quite convoluted and different, but like we really don't know what his motivation is here. It's like we talked about with the first episode. Is he going to be kind of like, you know, a vigilante for Jake? Is he going to start taking out people that Jake doesn't like? Does he want to corrupt Jake? Does he want to possess Jake? We don't really know his motivations yet. So maybe until they become clear, we're still just going to be stumbling around in this kind of confused area. But I did like the fact that this one was more entertaining than the last one. I was definitely more engaged. I definitely liked this one more. So I think that gives us hope going forward that maybe if they start to smooth these things out, I don't think this show is ever going to be fantastic. It's giving me the feeling that it's not going to get to like the level of some of the movies, but it could maybe become quite likable if they keep improving episode by episode. I guess we'll just have to see what they end up building as the season goes on. But I think this one was a definite improvement over the last one, but still not fantastic.
Could do an anthology style thing where they maybe change the story next season. So it's possible then if we're not high on this season, we might enjoy it like next season more. If they do that, we'll have to see. They probably, to sustain it, they might have to shake it up, because I think with the Chucky premise and doing it with this kid it's probably would be quite hard for them to really sustain it over like more than one season. So if they did more, I think they would have to shake it up a bit, but
yeah,
we'll see. Another thing to say actually to you, because you still haven't seen Cult of Chucky, the last film.
No, I haven't seen that one yet.
If you can, maybe try and see it before we get too far into this, because otherwise there might be spoilers. Really enjoy Cult. There's mixed views on it. I think it's one that divided people, but it's definitely one where they do something a bit different, which was, for me anyway, that was fun. So that was
cool. Well, I guess we'll just have to see where this series goes.
We will. So that's our thoughts on episode 2 of Chucky the TV show. So let us know, did you enjoy this one? What did you think of it overall? Was it stronger than the first episode for you? And we'll be back next week with our thoughts on the third episode, so look out for that. Like and subscribe as always. Also check out Rachel's channel. I'll put the link in the description to that, but it's just Rachel McDonald on YouTube if you want to put it in. And look out for more horror TV reviews soon. See you guys later. Goodbye.